Hi, my name is Ben from Woby Design, and today we're going to talk about the best 12-volt air conditioning unit on the market, and that's NOMADIC cooling. In full disclosure, they sent me this unit in white a couple years ago in exchange for a few installation videos, but as y'all know, it took me a while to get started. However, they've been really busy in the past few years and made a lot of changes and upgrades since then, so they actually sent me their newest and the latest unit in black, so don't worry too much about this AC unit in white. I just wanted to show you what comes with the unit and how it's packaged. Okay, so let's get to work. First, you need to cut a 14 by 14 inch opening on the roof of the van. I'm using the foam gasket that's included with the unit and marking the lines. Measure and double check exactly where you will be cutting the hole. Next, I could drill holes with a step drill bit so that the jigsaw blades could fit in. Now, this is something I improved on from the last time I drilled a hole on the roof, is using a cup and a drill extender to catch all the metal shavings so I don't make any mess. Everything got caught. We're good, baby. Woo! I secured a large trash bag with magnets to minimize the mess while I'm cutting with the jigsaw. And if you were curious on how I get certain types of shots with my camera since the Sprinter van is so high, this is how I do it with my Woby camera jig. Now, up on the roof, I vacuumed any loose metal shavings and marked the lines using the foam gasket. I spaced out about 1/4 inch from the line and laid down some tape to protect the metal surface. And now I'm ready to cut the second 14 inch by 14 inch hole on top of the roof. Now, I want you guys to check out this mistake that I just made. So I tried using a new jigsaw, but the blade was too short and it slipped out while I was cutting and eventually made a small dent on the outside of the line. Now, luckily it was a small dent and this will be covered up by the foam gasket, so it's not a major problem. So make sure to check and see if your blade is long enough, and double check if your jigsaw can accept U-shank or T-shank or both blades. So I switched back to my old jigsaw with the longer blades and continue cutting. Make sure to go slow and steady while cutting and take your time and reposition your body to get the best results. Once I finished cutting the majority of it off, I clean up the corners nicely and file the edges down smoothly. I vacuumed off any metal dust and wiped it clean with acetone. And I guess I'm not supposed to use acetone since it can take off clear coat, but I did this install like a month ago, so now I know. Once it dried, I applied Rust-Oleum on the raw metal edges to protect it and prevent it from rusting. Now, since the roof of these vans are not completely flat, we need to shape the foam gasket so that it fits the contour of the roof. This will prevent having big gaps between the gasket and the roof and ensure a good watertight seal. For the sides, I'm using a router with a 1/2 inch roundover bit, and for the middle, I'm tracing out the material that I need to remove using the sheet metal that I just cut out. This will ensure an exact fit and prevent having any gaps. Now, since the foam gasket is pretty flimsy, I cut out this frame using scraps of wood that I had laying around. This will help apply even pressure when I'm gluing it down, but it's not really necessary since I realized there's a double-sided tape on the gasket that holds it down for you while the adhesive cures. I'm using 3M Marine Adhesive Sealant 5200 as recommended. And I'm using this to glue the gasket onto the roof as well as sealing everything watertight. I spaced out about 1/4 inch away from the gasket and laid tape down for a cleaner caulking job. I peeled the backing off from the bottom of the gasket and applied a nice thick coat of 3M Marine Adhesive Sealant. I can then position the gasket and clamp it down with the frame to apply even pressure around the entire gasket. Once the adhesive hardens, you can start sealing the outside of the gasket using the same 3M Marine Adhesive Sealant. Don't worry too much about making a mess since the AC unit will hide all of this. But focus more on creating a good seal with no gaps so none of the water gets into the van. If you lay down tape before and use your finger to smooth everything out, you should get a fairly clean looking caulking job, but like I said, it doesn't even matter since it'll all be covered. Now, normally I would install the AC unit and that would apply the clamping pressure to this gasket until the sealant cures, which takes about 7 days. But like I said in the beginning of the video, Nomadic Cooling decided to send me the latest unit, so I actually had to wait a few days until the new unit arrived. So instead of leaving it wide open, I decided to cover it up with scraps of OSB board I had laying around. This also allowed me to apply clamping pressure so this sealant can properly cure. And I honestly only put this on so none of the dust or bugs could get into the van, but that night, there was a pretty hefty rainstorm, and if I didn't have this installed, the whole van would have had major water damage. I guess that was a fool, huh? As you can see, water is coming down from this bolt hole, and on top of it is just a bolt and a washer. So water is dripping down from here. The same thing for this. Okay?
So what happened was...
So after a few days, the latest AC unit arrived from Nomadic Cooling and I could continue on with the install. I unboxed a new unit and compared all the updated parts and checked to make sure I have everything needed before installing. I also did a final water test around the opening. I wasn't sure if it was leaking anywhere else besides the bolts, and luckily there were no leaks and everything was sealed watertight. Now, it would be extremely helpful and much safer to have another person help you lift the AC unit up on the roof, but I didn't have another person helping me out. And honestly, this AC unit isn't that heavy, but it's just really awkward to carry up the ladder. Use the extra foam gasket provided to support the back of the AC unit. Align the AC unit with the hole. Position the unit from the inside of the van by lifting it up and aligning it with the hole. To secure the AC unit, you'll be screwing in these 4 bolts to the AC unit. Don't forget about the metal gasket, which should help apply even pressure all around. Add the metal support bar and tighten down the bolts using a hex wrench. They have a really great video about this topic, but make sure not to over tighten these bolts. Now, these bolts are meant to be cut, and so that's why it's so long. Be very careful with an angle grinder since this is such an awkward angle. Also, make sure you're not damaging any of the wires or the AC unit itself. Once you cut the bolts shorter, you should be able to access the hex nuts. Tighten the 4 hex nuts and you're pretty much done. Done! I went back on the roof to peel off the protective film on the AC unit, and this part of the install is finished. For now, keep the wires protected, and once I have the electrical setup, I'll show you how to connect everything for part 2 and show you how everything works. Okay, so this is how I installed Nomadic Cooling AC unit. Now, if you don't have an AC unit in your camper van, just don't call it a luxury camper van, because it's not. These vans will get hot no matter how much insulation you put in, and the max air fan and opening up the windows and doors can only do so much. And what if it rains? What if there's bugs all over the place? And if you happen to be traveling with your pet, it might be necessary for you to have an AC unit because a lot of these places might not be pet friendly and you might have to leave your pet inside the van when you're out doing stuff. And honestly, it's a hefty investment to have an AC unit in your camper van, but let's be real, if you're going to be purchasing a luxury camper van that's well over $100,000, don't you kind of expect to have an AC unit in that van? Or is that just me? And like I mentioned in previous videos, I think it's worth it to have the latest technology in your camper van so that in the next 5 or 10 years, it's not gonna be outdated. Now, there's few reasons why I went with Nomadic Cooling. And one of the main reasons is that you could go off the grid and just run the AC unit off your battery. And you don't have to be plugged in and you don't have to have the car running the whole time. And with my plan of having about 600 amp hours of battery, that should be more than enough power to run the AC unit for a couple hours a day, and I should be very comfortable. Now, another reason why I went with Nomadic Cooling is the design and the style of the whole unit itself. My second option would have been the Nomadic RTX 2000, which is another popular AC unit on the market. Now, the biggest deal breaker for me for the Nomadic RTX 2000 was that it sticks out about 2-3 inches from the ceiling after it's installed. And with the design layout that I have, I only have about 1-inch headroom space in the camper van, so that pretty much means that I'm going to be hitting that thing with my head all the time because it's gonna be right in the middle of the camper van where foot traffic is very heavy. And personally, the whole design and the style of the NOMADIC RTX 2000 looks a little bit more cheap and outdated. Whereas the NOMADIC cooling unit looks fresh and modern and updated, and it sits flush with the ceiling and it just looks way nicer. Now, I have no way of testing this AC unit and telling you how efficient it is because I don't have my electrical setup just yet. So in the meantime, check out their YouTube channel where they have installation videos, consumption test videos, and they even have installation videos, and they actually sell the NOMADIC RTX 2000 as well on their website, so make sure to check out their website. Now, speaking of electrical setup, NOMADIC Cooling actually has electrical kits available depending on your needs. So what NOMADIC Cooling offers is these electrical kits that's already fitted, that's durable as well as safe, and all you have to do is plug and play. I mean, there's still a little bit of setup involved, but you don't have to hunt down each individual items and making sure everything is correct and wires are correct sizes and all that stuff, which is the more complicated part of the whole electrical setup. They have these electrical kits available in different sizes and different configuration, and they could always help you out with any kind of troubleshooting, so make sure to check out NOMADIC Cooling for your electrical needs. And if you're looking for the best looking and most efficient 12-volt AC unit on the market, go to NOMADIC Cooling. And they were nice enough to give you guys a discount, so make sure to use Woby 100 at checkout. Thank you NOMADIC Cooling for making this video happen. So, that's it for this video. Make sure to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a single video in this whole van conversion series. And comment down below how you stay cool during this hot ass summer. Thanks again, and until next time.